It looks like our resident mob boss is about to be hit with three devastating pieces of news simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of panic and desperation. First, we have the terrifying prospect of Ross capturing Carly and holding her hostage within the cold, isolated stone walls of Windermere. Second, the chaotic and vengeful Jens has seemingly kidnapped Justine, planning to use her as the ultimate leverage to lure Sunny into a fatal trap. And if that were not enough of an absolute nightmare, the third blow arrives with the revelation that Ethan has taken a bullet to the hip, rendering him completely incapacitated and useless for any upcoming rescue operations. The incapacitation of Ethan is an incredibly crucial detail here. If you think about the psychological motive behind stripping Sunny of his most capable allies, it becomes clear that the writers are systematically dismantling his safety net. Ethan taking a bullet is not just a physical injury, it represents the unforeseen fallout of underestimating the sheer brutality of these villains. Sunny relies heavily on a tight-knit circle of enforcers, and seeing one of them bleed out on the floor forces him to confront his own vulnerability. Without Ethan to run point or provide tactical cover, Sunny is left scrambling, his usual resources depleted at the exact moment he needs them the most. This brings us to a monumental shift in character dynamics. Stripped of his usual muscle, Sunny is seemingly forced to do the one thing he has spent decades avoiding, collaborating with law enforcement. If you ask me, watching Sunny swallow his immense pride and reach out to Dante for an official alliance is a testament to how dire the situation has become. The shattered trust that has always defined the relationship between the mob and the police department must be temporarily swept under the rug. This is a highly calculated move on Sunny's part, recognizing that he simply does not have the manpower to fight a two-front war against both Ross and Jens simultaneously. It looks like Sunny and Dante will sit down to map out a desperate split-force strategy. I suspect the plan involves Dante taking the official police squad to hunt down Jens and rescue Justine, while Sunny takes whatever loyal men he has left to storm Windermere and save Carly. This division of labor makes logical sense, but it also highlights the immense risk involved. Sunny is essentially trusting the state to handle a deeply personal vendetta with Jens, while he walks blindly into whatever fortress Ross has constructed on the island. Could it be that Sunny is underestimating the defensive capabilities of Windermere? I highly suspect he is walking straight into a meat grinder. Let us focus on Dante's side of the operation first. Dante is a seasoned detective, and going up against a wild card like Jens requires a level of tactical precision that the police force rarely demonstrates. Jens has an ulterior motive in kidnapping Justine. He wants to humiliate the justice system while simultaneously drawing Sunny out. However, Jens might severely underestimate Dante's resolve. If Dante coordinates a massive tactical strike, utilizing every resource at the department's disposal, it is highly probable that Jens' operation will crumble before it even truly begins. I predict that Dante will successfully corner Jens, executing a flawless raid that results in Jens being taken alive, completely neutralizing his chaotic threat without firing a lethal shot. The capture of Jens would be a massive victory for Dante, proving that the system can actually work against these international criminals. But taking Jens alive introduces a whole new set of complications for the future. A man like Jens does not simply sit quietly in an interrogation room and accept his fate. He holds secrets, alliances, and knowledge of offshore accounts that could implicate half the criminal underworld. Dante capturing him alive implies that the writers are keeping Jens around for a future trial storyline, or perhaps a massive prison break arc down the line. Either way, Dante, securing Justine and locking Jens in a cell, allows the narrative to shift its entire focus to the much darker, much more lethal situation unfolding on the island. Meanwhile, Sunny's journey to Windermere promises to be a descent into absolute hell. Windermere is not just a house. It is a sprawling, gothic fortress filled with secret passages, hidden dungeons, and a dark history of trapping its victims in endless misery. Ross choosing this location to hold Carly is no accident. It is a psychological warfare tactic designed to make Sunny feel small and powerless. I imagine Sunny arriving on the island, the cold wind howling off the water, knowing that every shadow could conceal one of Ross's armed guards. The tension here is absolutely palpable, and I seriously doubt Sunny's initial breach of the castle will go smoothly. When Sunny finally manages to infiltrate the lower levels of Windermere, I strongly suspect he will make a sickening discovery. He is going in expecting to find Carly, but what if the situation is exponentially worse? It looks like Ross has been busy hoarding leverage, meaning Sunny might stumble upon Jocelyn and Liesel locked away in the same damp cell block. Finding Jocelyn and Liesel alongside Carly changes the entire calculus of the rescue mission. Sonny is no longer just trying to extract the woman he loves. He is suddenly responsible for the lives of three highly volatile, terrified women, all while navigating a hostile environment heavily guarded by a desperate madman. We have to ask ourselves what Ross is actually trying to achieve here. His endgame seems to be rooted in complete destruction rather than simple extortion or financial gain. Ross knows that his cover is blown, his alliances are crumbling, and his time is rapidly running out. Holding Carly, Jocelyn, and Liesel is his twisted way of ensuring that if he goes down, he takes the emotional core of the town with him. This implies that Ross has no intention of negotiating a peaceful surrender. He is preparing for a final stand, turning Windermere into a heavily fortified bunker where he can exact his final, bloody revenge on anyone who dares to cross the threshold. Just when it seems like Sonny is completely outgunned and outmaneuvered, trapped in the catacombs of the castle with three hostages and a heavily armed Ross bearing down on them, the narrative demands a massive twist. I am predicting the sudden, shocking arrival of Valentine and the mysterious Z. This is the kind of high-stakes intervention that completely flips the board and changes the momentum of the entire battle. Valentine has a deeply personal stake in this, given his complex history with the island and his desperate need to redeem himself in the eyes of his daughter. And Z, representing the immense, shadowy power of the intelligence community, brings the exact kind of tactical superiority needed to break Ross's siege. The visual of Sonny, Valentine, and Z forming an uneasy, temporary alliance in the dark halls of Windermere is incredible to imagine. These are men who operate in the moral gray areas of the world, brought together by a singular, shared desire to obliterate Ross. Valentine knows the secret tunnels of the castle better than anyone, providing the crucial navigational advantage they so desperately need. Z brings the heavy artillery, the cutting-edge technology, and the strategic oversight. Together they can systematically dismantle Ross's defenses, clearing a safe path for Sonny to reach Carly, Jocelyn, and Liesel before Ross can execute his final fatal command. Now, let us divide this overarching theory into two distinct analytical paths. In Scenario A, we must consider the possibility that Jens and Ross were secretly coordinating their attacks the entire time. Could it be that Jens kidnapping Justine was a deliberate distraction, designed specifically to pull Dante and the police force away from Windermere? If this is true, it implies a terrifying level of synergy between the villains. It would mean that Ross anticipated Sonny coming to the island alone, banking on the fact that Sonny would be under-equipped and emotionally compromised. This scenario paints Ross as a brilliant, chess-playing mastermind who orchestrated the entire evening's chaos to isolate his true targets and ensure his victory. Conversely, let us examine Scenario B. It looks like it is equally possible that Jens and Ross are operating completely independently, their alliances having long since fractured under the weight of their own massive egos. In this version of events, the simultaneous kidnappings are merely a catastrophic coincidence, driven by desperate men panicking as the walls close in around them. This implies that Ross capturing Carly, Jocelyn, and Liesel is an improvised, frantic move rather than a carefully calculated masterstroke. If Scenario B is accurate, Ross is far more dangerous because he is completely unpredictable, acting purely on instinct and unbridled rage rather than a set plan. An unhinged Ross, backed into a corner without a coherent strategy, is capable of inflicting maximum casualties simply because he has absolutely nothing left to lose. As we look toward the climax of this intense storyline, the contrasting fates of our two primary antagonists seem to be coming into sharp focus. While Jens faces the cold, sterile reality of a police interrogation room after being completely outsmarted by Dante, Ross is seemingly destined for a much more violent and permanent conclusion. I highly doubt Ross will ever see the inside of a courtroom or face a jury of his peers. His pride and his madness will force him to make a final, suicidal stand at Windermere. Surrounded and outgunned by Sonny, Valentine, and Z, Ross will likely choose to go out in a blaze of supposed glory, resulting in his ultimate demise within the very castle he tried to conquer. Ultimately, guys, while the hostages might walk away physically unharmed, the psychological scars of this night will linger for years to come. Sonny might survive the physical battle, but he will have to live with the chilling realization that his lifestyle directly placed Carly, Jocelyn, and Liesel in the crosshairs of a complete maniac. Furthermore, his forced alliance with Dante and the intelligence community fundamentally shifts the power dynamics of his world, proving that he cannot handle every threat alone. If you ask me, this entire ordeal is less about the physical rescue and more about shattering the stubborn illusion of Sonny's invincibility. The dust may eventually settle on the island, but the emotional wreckage left behind will completely redefine these characters moving forward. We will just have to keep watching to see exactly how much of their souls they lose in the process.